Welcome back, Senior Devs. Sean Cannon here. In this lesson, we're going to talk about some traits to avoid which can get devs fired and blacklisted from projects, organizations, and entire networks of colleagues. Imagine 2 years from now, you've moved on and need to interview some new dev candidates at your new workplace. Imagine one of those candidates is a former colleague, maybe someone you're working with right now. If you had a positive working relationship with this person, odds are you will be extremely lax in the interview and sing their praises to the hiring manager or HR. On the other hand, what if you hated working with this person and you were able to tell the hiring manager to skip the interview entirely and focus on the other candidates? This happens more than you'd think, and it really helps prove the saying, it's not what you know, it's who you know. The list we're going to cover in this module is collected from actual experiences with real colleagues. Not everything in this list bothers me personally, my skin's pretty thick, but if the dev represents our agency and the behavior makes us look bad to the client, then the dev is gone. With that, let's dive in. Complaining in a shared channel. It's no mystery that this is a stressful career, and sometimes it's healthy to vent and let off some steam. When we internalize our frustrations, it can affect our mental state and our work performance, so being able to communicate frustrations and concerns is a healthy part of the job. It is not okay, however, to whine and complain to your coworkers or on a chat app or in an email. If you're not accompanying your frustrations and concerns with proposed solutions that will help the project, then you're giving everybody around you a reason to tune you out. They will stop listening to you and taking you seriously, and you will lose respect and credibility. If you have a frustration or concern and don't have a proposed solution, then write it down and save it for the next retrospective meeting, where you can add it to the stop doing column and you can let other people propose solutions. As long as it's a collaborative discussion and the goal is improvement, people will understand and respect your thoughts. The moment you come off as entitled and unappreciative, you will lose the crowd and people will want to mute you. Next up, deflecting blame. People love to point fingers and pretend they're infallible. When something goes wrong and you're blamed for it, it's one thing to refute if you had nothing to do with the issue. If, however, you did have something to do with the issue, you need to own it fully. Deflecting the blame is when devs say things like, yeah, I broke the build, but if DevOps hadn't made the build so fragile, then my bug wouldn't have broken it. Or like, yeah, that's my bug, but I was waiting on Dave all sprint and was blocked by his tickets, so I only had a few hours to code it instead of all day. Bringing other people down with you is extremely cowardly, and it's a guarantee that those other people will remember what you did. What you should be doing instead is pushing them out of the line of fire and taking all the blame yourself. That way, you give everyone around you a chance to respect your integrity and honorable intentions so they can remember you for that instead. Everybody makes mistakes. Show your team that you're not afraid to recognize that growth comes from failure. Don't pass around the blame, it's just a really amateur thing to do. Next on our list, public shaming. If we combine deflecting blame and complaining, we get public shaming. When bringing up concerns to key stakeholders, never single out a member of the team. These should be private conversations kept internally to your close peers with the intention of either passing along a direct concern to that person's manager or to uncover a coaching and growth opportunity for the person in question. If one person on the design team is being extremely difficult to work with, for example, maybe by changing attached designs after devs begin work, you may have the urge to call that person out in a shared channel. Don't do it. Keep it private. Send a direct message to the user expressing your concern, or even better, leave a comment about your concern with the process on the ticket itself. Don't make it personal, make it procedural. I don't personally have any issues with public accountability, but I believe that what goes around comes around. So if you don't want to be called out publicly when you make mistakes, don't do it to other people, and you won't plant the idea in their head to return the favor. Next up, committing sloppy code. If you regularly force the rest of the dev team to find your errors and typos for you in your code reviews, you will most certainly notice your PRs sit unreviewed longer and longer because your team grows sick of doing your job for you. Automated tools like linters, builds, and static analysis can help a ton, but misspelled variables and inconsistent naming, or logical bugs or missing unit tests likely won't be caught by those tools, and they'll instead be caught, hopefully, by the devs reviewing your code. Again, we all make mistakes, but a habit of mistakes is called incompetence. Being a junior and struggling with the code is one thing, but being lazy and sloppy is just inconsiderate and there's no excuse for it. You're here watching this course, so I know you want to be the best dev you can be. For that to happen, you need to hold yourself to a higher standard than anybody else in every area of your job. Of all the traits I'm listing in this module, committing sloppy code is by far the most common that gets devs kicked off projects. The rest of us didn't have time to do our job and their job, so we replaced them with another dev who could do the job right the first time. Next up, making people wait for you. This one is short and self-explanatory. People like to feel important, and making them wait for you does the opposite. Arrive on time to meetings, deliver tickets early, and just understand that being on time is the bare minimum required to not lose respect. Moving on, discussing identity politics. In our world, especially these days, identity politics is everywhere. Everybody has a group, and if you say anything online, you make one group happy and another group angry. In a work setting, you're just asking for trouble by bringing up any identity politics. I've personally witnessed a conversation at an office holiday party where some folks were joking about a colleague who came into the office a few weeks earlier wearing a really wild and comical presidential candidate shirt, and his supervisor was in earshot and got legit mad and said, "I don't think he can work with us anymore. I don't think I can have him on my team if he supports that president." Crazy, right? Now, I won't say which presidential candidate was on the shirt because honestly it doesn't matter, and that's my point. Some of you are visualizing a Trump shirt, some of you are visualizing a Bernie shirt, some visualizing a Hillary shirt, and so on. Whichever presidential candidate you have in your head directly coincides with whether or not you agree with the employee for wearing the shirt or agree with his boss for wanting to let him go. Identity politics puts people in these echo chambers where they only want to be around other people who share the exact same opinions, and if you challenge any of their opinions with facts, they will argue about the source of the fact instead of considering the fact at face value. All this does is divide people and ruin relationships. If you want to grow your career, you need to draw a hard, non-negotiable line between your work life and your personal life. I'm not suggesting that any of you watching my course would flip out if you discovered your boss or coworker was part of another group, but it's absolutely a very real risk that you could jeopardize your career growth potential if your identity politics conflict with those around you. Outside of work, live your best life and support whichever group makes you happy. Maybe someday our society will be mature enough that we can have rational conversations across identity lines, realizing that belonging to any particular group most likely won't affect your job performance. But hey, what people don't know, they can't use against you. That wraps up this module. Keep growing, and I'll see you in the next one.